Adobe Illustrator is really all about one tool in particular. So again, just an overview of the program. You have tools. You hover over those tools. It tells you the name of those tools. If there's a little arrow below it, if you click and hold, you'll notice there are tools behind other tools. And every time that you select a tool, you have options for those tools. You have layers. Layers work like a stack of papers. Whatever is on top is in front. Whatever is on bottom is behind. And the goal of this is for you to learn how to use the pen tool properly. And there's a couple of rules that I'm going to share with you. You'll notice that we already have lines drawn on here. And as I move around the document, it's snapping to things. So the first thing you want to do is go up to View. And anything that's checked on, turn it off. If you don't, it'll make you crazy. So turn off anything that you have turned on. And you'll also notice in the layers, we have the background layer that we're going to trace on top of. So if I turn the little eye off, I don't see layer 1. But we're going to draw on layer 2. There's a difference between selecting layer 1 and selecting layer 2. We're going to select and draw on layer 2. So the pen tool, what we want to do is to trace these lines. They get incrementally harder, and you might need to rewind the video a few times to understand what's happening. The first 3 lines are pretty easy. The next 2 are difficult. So as we know, when we draw, if we click around, we can draw straight lines. If we click and drag, we can draw curves. So we'll notice that the first 3 lines are all straight. We also always want to draw with a black stroke and no fill. So to make no fill, just click the little red strike through, none. We have no fill. And the idea is to get all your anchor points in. So I just want to get the points in. So I'm going to do a bad job drawing this on purpose because we're going to fix it. Click. I'm going to come down to the bottom, click. And to let go, I'm going to hold the Alt key and click, and it'll let go. So from here, I'm going to change to the Zoom tool, and I'm going to click to zoom in. If I hold the Alt key and click, I can zoom out. I'm going to zoom in. Also behind the Zoom tool is the Hand tool, so I can click and drag around. If you recall, the black arrow moves the whole thing, the whole line or whole shape, but the white arrow, the direct selection tool, moves anchor points. So I just simply want to grab this anchor point and move it over. Then I can scroll down to the bottom, grab this anchor point, and cover it over. So if I zoom back out now, I have successfully traced the first line. So I'm going to move on to the next line. Click, click. Everywhere it changes direction. Again, I'm going to do a poor job on purpose, just so you get the idea. It's about getting your anchor points in first and then going back and fixing them. And to let go, I'm going to hold the Alt key and click. So now I can zoom in, grab the white arrow, and just start moving the anchor points into position. Again, the black arrow moves the whole line. The white arrow moves the anchor points. And I just completely want to cover the red line. It's important to pay attention to detail. That's what people pay you for. Or else they can just do it themselves, and why pay you? All right, so that's the second line. So the third line, again, you'll notice I'm zoomed all the way out. I just want to get these points in. And again, I'm doing just a pretty loose job. I'm just click, click, click. And then Alt click to let go. And just like previously, we'll move those anchor points into position with the white arrow. So the next 2 lines will become a lot more difficult, but once you master this pen tool, you'll know Illustrator. Yeah, there's a lot of tools and there's a lot of things you can do with it and a lot of things to make your life easier. But if you understand this one tool, you'll understand this whole program. And that's the goal of doing all of this. All right, the next line is a little bit more difficult. So there's a couple rules that we need to know. Well, first of all, it's just the fewer points that you have in an illustration, the cleaner your illustration looks. So we want to have less anchor points. But the rules that we need to know is anytime you go into or out of a curve, you always want to click and drag. You need to drag because you need those handles to make curves. The other rule is you never put a point on a curve. You only put it where it changes direction. So let's do it. I click. I'm coming into a curve. I'm going to click and drag because I need the handles to make a curve. No points on a curve, only where it changes direction. And I'm coming out of a curve, so I click and drag. Down here, I'm going into a curve, so I click and drag, and I'm dragging the direction that the line is going. I'm not dragging up or backwards, because then I get my handles all twisted up. I'm just going the direction of the curve. No points on a curve, because curves are round. They shouldn't have a point in them. So I'm going to click and drag as I come out of a curve, and click. Now what I'm going to do is zoom in, and I'm going to clean this up. So just like before, get your points in the right positions. Move them all in the right spots. And they're all in the right positions. So if I go to the top and I want to fix this curve, I'm going to grab the handle here. And I'm going to grab this handle, and together we're going to do a little teamwork. We're going to make that curve nice and clean. And looks pretty good. So if I want to fix the top part of it, if I grab it, you'll notice it moves the other side of the curve, and we don't want that. So I'm going to go to Edit, Undo, put that back. So behind the pen tool is a tool called the anchor point tool. So I use these two tools all the time. Pen tool to draw, anchor point tool to either drag handles out of something or just move half of a handle. So the anchor point tool is going to move half of a handle. So I can just click and drag it back, and it's gone. Another thing I can do is if I just completely want to omit that handle is I can just click it, and it's also gone. So down here would be the same idea. If I click this line, if I use the white arrow, it's going to move the other half of the handle like that. And we don't want that. So I want to use the anchor point tool, and I can move it just half of a handle and move half of a handle. I can use the white arrow. Together, a little teamwork. This takes a moment to get to understand this and not feel frustrated. So if you feel frustrated, it's understandable. And everybody feels like that at the beginning. So there's our line. The final line is definitely the hardest, but let's just remember our rules. There's no points on a curve, only where it changes direction. Anytime you go into or out of a curve, click and drag. Just briefly, just watch this. This is just a note on the anchor point tool. Say I drew a shape, but I didn't have handles and I wanted them. With this anchor point tool, I can click and drag out handles. Click and drag, click and drag, click and drag. So you can drag out handles out of points that don't have them in the first place by using that as well. All right, let's go to the last line. Again, we want to put them all in at the same time, and then we'll go back and fix it. So click into a curve, click and drag. No points on a curve, but where it changes direction is where I click and drag. No points on a curve, I'm coming out of a curve, click and drag. No curve, just this straight, so just click into a curve, click and drag, and the line's moving down. It changes direction here, so I click and drag up. Changes direction here, I click and drag down. Into a curve, click and drag down, click and drag up, click and drag down, click, click and drag. No points on a curve, but where it changes direction, I click and drag, and click, and then alt-click to let go. So go ahead and move all those points into position. This is the most difficult of them. So if you have to rewind this a few times, or many, that's fine. The reason I'm having you trace lines is to learn how to use this pen tool. All right, let's go back to the top. So for instance, this one, I'm just gonna use a little teamwork here, just like we did on the other one. And then on this side, you can drag the handles out a little bit longer to make those curves a little bit longer. And again, the anchor point tool behind the pen tool you can use to straighten out some of these or get rid of handles. Looks pretty good. Here, we'll get rid of that. Anchor point tool, you can either move them straight again, or you can just click in it a little bit or delete that anchor point. So do your best with this. It's important to really understand this. Don't glaze over this or skip this. Get these lines nailed out because it'll ensure that you're more successful using this program just by simply doing this little tutorial I put together. And there it is. And if you just want to see your anchor points that you drew, you can just go to select all and you'll see them. So I can zoom in, I can see all my points. And this is what it should look like for you, particularly on this one and this one. There's no points on this curve. There's no points on these curves. We also have very few points. The fewer points you have, the cleaner it's going to look. There's only 3 points in here. 3 here. There's just 1 point in here. There's no points on this curve. So if yours looks like this, you did it right. If it doesn't, just go back and fix it. But that's how you use the pen tool.